Oh, wow. I think if there was a human form of thunder, it'll be in your hands. Thank you so much, Uncle Vishen. I think this is the most amazing way I could start my new concept, breathing music. And so welcome, Uncle Vishen, to my new adventure. I've titled it Breathing Music because we need to pay tribute to people like you who are taking music to another level. And so thank you so much for joining me, Uncle Vishen.
Pleasure, absolutely pleasure. I'm actually quite honored to be your first person to be on your program. And yeah, when you called me and told me about it, I was like, okay, this is nice, let's do it.
I really appreciate it. I like somebody like you who studied here in South Africa, studied in India, and you toured the whole world. And I mean, your playing speaks for itself. And so I had to have you because, I mean, you have had an impact on my life, believe it or not. I mean, you have really inspired me from the time I was born. You really inspired me. So I have a couple of questions for you, and you can just be free and answer whatever you would like. So my first question is, do you consider yourself a purist classical musician?
That depends what is purest. Okay, so firstly, when you said that I studied locally and I studied abroad, just to let you know, I'm still studying. There's no end to learning in music. We always say that. And being a purist, well, in a way, yes and no.
Okay.
So, yeah, yes, I am pure when it comes to my solo performances. We have to follow the proper processes in terms of the peshkar, in terms of the qaida and the rela and all the gatsparan and all the different compositions. And then when I play for Bollywood and fusion, then I'm not a purist. Then we take our music and we mix it. I bring different styles, different sounds on the tabla. So yes and no, yeah. So I'm pure in one aspect. When I'm playing classical music, it's absolutely pure. When I'm playing, even going down to playing for ghazals,
yes,
even bhajans, I'm not so pure because the notes are pure, the compositions and stuff is
technique,
pure, but the application
is also pure.
Yeah, but the application sometimes, differs. So yeah.
Okay, so
because
obviously,
like in bhajan playing,
yes.
like in bhajan playing or in ghazals, we use like those are not pure things. Whereas in classical, we would use a proper rela. We would do all of that. So, but in terms of ghazals, and then in Bollywood is all those things that we do. So that is not being pure. So given that as a tabla player, I'm exposed to so many different genres here in our country, and also when we performed abroad, we have to be pure at one stage, and the other stage we have to be, I won't call it impure, we have to fuse.
Okay. So we're talking about classical music here, and I think your technique, no matter whether you're playing a Bollywood song or whether you're playing a classical thing, your technique is always going to be like pakka classical, but you use your creativity, I think.
Yeah.
So what are the benefits of learning classical music? What are the benefits?
Okay, so speaking about tabla, when you learn about tabla, I got posed this question 3 days ago by my son. Because I was asking him to practice terikita, terikita, dha, terikita, terikita. So he's asking me what benefit is going to be to him. So I took a song and I did a song and I played the lagi of that song in terikita, terikita, dha, terikita, terikita, dha, terikita. Then he said, oh, we can use it there. I said, yeah, that's the benefit of it. So the benefit of learning classical music, it grounds you, firstly. It disciplines you. It gives you the opportunity to experience what the real sadhana of music is all about, you know. So, and also it allows you to explore North Indian, Hindustani classical music, even in tabla, as much as the compositions are fixed, it also allows us to explore. So how does it allow us to explore? In Qaida, we have what is called paltas, the variation of the main theme. Those main themes don't have to be fixed. It can be spontaneous, and actually the rule is that it's supposed to be spontaneous. The tabla player is supposed to make the paltas on the spot. And start creating and developing as to how he feels. So classical music allows you to do that, to open up yourself to the
I agree. I feel the same way. Even though you play tabla, I play violin, I feel the same way. That's what I love about classical music. So as a tabla player now, you mentioned you accompany musicians, you do solos, you play for ghazals. Now, what I always try to understand is how do you know when to, you know, expose your technique and when to, you know, like play calm, you know, not so complicated. Like I know in ghazal sometimes, you know, when do you play the... Sorry?
When do you take over and when do you not?
Exactly, like the complicated lagis, you can't just play it in the middle of a ghazal, otherwise you're gonna lose that essence, right? But I know from my experience playing with you, you know exactly when to do it. How do you do that?
Okay, firstly, tabla was initially an accompanying instrument. Tabla was used as an accompanying instrument to vocalists, instrumentalists. After that, many years ago, this I'm talking about many years ago, like when tabla was invented in 13th century and thereafter, when the great ustads and pandits have taken tabla to a next level at that time, tabla was initially for only accompaniment, and then it became solo. So once you at a solo stage, you are the main artist. I am doing a tabla solo. I am the main artist. My lehera accompanist, he is my support. Mm-hmm. If I'm playing for a singer or an instrumentalist, I am the support. Okay. So I need to back him and feed him that rhythm so that he can present his song or he can present his composition to the best of his ability as well. So it is called sad. We have to do it together. In terms of where do you take over and how do you express yourself exceedingly is, firstly, in classical compositions, the main artist gives the tabla player a nod.
I know.
Tell him, right, okay, you go for it. You do your thing now.
Yes.
And then the tabla player then exposes his talents, yeah. Given it being a gut, padan, that's in classical platform. Even the vocalists as well, when you're doing bara khayals and we're doing ek tal in 42 beats, all of that, the tabla player still gets a chance to do something in between.
Yes, yes.
So that is in classical platform. In bhajans and light music and in ghazal, there is specific places where you have to come in with lagis, you have to come in with mukhras and the moras as well. So in ghazals, always it comes after the antra back into the stai.
The stai.
And then tabla player has to do the lagi, and the tabla player gets opened up during the interlude of the song. So that's how that is the pattern that we have been exposed to, whereby you play calmly, then after that you pick up your level of playing where you're exposed by a lagi, and then after that you do a tihai and come back to the main rhythm of the song. So that is how.
I always admire that. Well, even in your playing, and even when Talat Aziz, for example, when he is singing, he carries on, and you don't actually realize that the tabla is actually even there sometimes, because the singing is so independent of the tabla, and then suddenly the tabla will start like doing something, and you're like, oh my god, it was so, you know, beautifully done. So that's something that I always find very fascinating. So we've spoken a little bit about. Okay.
That also comes from the sadhana of classical music, because that style, Ghazal style of playing, comes from Thumari.
Yes.
So it's that application onto the Ghazal platform as well.
Okay.
Then again, yes, stems from learning classical music.
Okay, so I want to just, I don't even know if you remember this, but many years ago when I was much smaller, you told me it's okay to make mistakes. We all started by making mistakes, and that actually gave me a little bit of confidence, but I still feel nervous sometimes, especially playing in front of you and other great musicians, like even Rajiv Mosa, for example. And what is that? I want you to like explain this phenomena of making mistakes. Can you like elaborate on this advice that you gave me?
Okay. Mistakes are unintentional. Remember that. It's not an intention for us to play a rhythm and then make a mistake.
Yeah.
Mistakes will come in the ability of learning. In your learning experience, we have to make mistakes. Without making those mistakes, how will we know what is right?
That's true.
So in the same way, even in my practice, in my riyaz at the moment that I'm doing, I still make those mistakes.
We'll always make mistakes.
Yes. Great artists. I mean, I hear it from the great Pandits and Ustads that this is the mistake that was made, but because of the experience, they know how to bring it forth. Whereby, if a tabla player, I don't like to mention names, but great tabla players, if he's playing a chatusra jati lagi in fours, right? And then, or a song in fours, and then suddenly he decides to do a tishra jati in between. But instead of doing the tishra jati, it became khanda, it became 5. And then he brings it back to threes. So these are the things that we can pick up. And yes, on stage, we make those mistakes. We bring it, but we know how to bring it back to where it's supposed to be. But making the mistakes is part of the learning, part of the whole music thing.
Recently, when we spoke, you had a conversation with me about humility, and you were very passionate about a musician being humble. And I completely agree with you 100% on that, because I mean, music, you can actually, it's sadhana, as you said. So it's not something that should be, shown off in a boastful manner. So what keeps you humble, Uncle Vishen?
So, as human beings, we're supposed to be humble, whether we're musicians, whether we on the street, if we are somebody, we should be humble. If we are nobody, we also should be humble.
Sometimes that's difficult though. So what keeps you humble?
So it's my dad, I think. It's the upbringing. And he should always tell me, if others do wrong, you shouldn't do wrong. Right? And it's when you start to learn Indian classical music and you realize how big this art form is and how small your Atma is in this art form. You know what I'm saying? So how can we show off this little talent that we have? All of this that we're doing on tabla is in this Maya. But the talent that has given us is bigger than this. The art form is so big. And we can't afford to have this ego. Now, if somebody is playing, and if they're not doing it right according to how you know it, it's their style. So we shouldn't have the ego and say, oh, you're playing it wrong.
Okay.
It's their style, because in tabla, especially in South Africa, there's so many different styles, especially the application of mridangam notes on tabla. And that's another topic altogether.
Yeah.
Right? And but I can't say that they're playing it wrong, because it is how they see the tabla, it's how they perception of the whole thing. So the thing that keeps me grounded in my tabla and all of that is that every time I sit to practice, I realize how little I know.
I agree.
So that's
that happened
why
to me too. That happens to me.
So I have to go back to practice to realize, hey, you're not doing it right. You have to better yourself. Yeah. So that is basically what it is. And also it is watching the great artists, the great ustads and pandits, how they behave. I had the privilege of being with some of these artists. I sat with Ustad Zakir Hussain, great artist. He's the god of tabla in my eyes. I sat with Pandit Bhavani Shankar. So and watching these, I mean, that is the heart of Punjab Gharana, those two, you know. So watching these two guys off stage also taught me that, you know what, we should be like them. We should learn from them how to be on stage and how to be off stage. Because I was watching a video on YouTube on Ustad Zakir Hussain and Ustad, what's his name? He plays Sarangi.
Ustad Sultan Khan.
Yeah, Ustad Sultan Khan. So, and before they went on stage, Zakir and Zakir was, Ustad Zakir Hussain was doing a solo on stage, and he was very much younger, both of them rather. And then Ustad Zakir Hussain asked Ustad Sultan Khan whether he's ready to go on stage. But he's the main artist. He should be, normally with the main artist doing solo, you should be focused and all of that. No, but Zakir was absolutely cool. He was going and he was carrying on with these things. There was an artist that performed before him, came, they greeted each other, spoke so calmly and lovingly, and you know, there was no air about anybody's performance. There was no air about the art and the ego, nothing. It was just, and these are the things that keeps me grounded as well.
I
because
think,
and also there's no end to learning.
That's so true. And when I look at a person like yourself, you are saying Ustad Zakir Hussain is like so amazing and everything. I see you in that way, and I like respect you in that way, because I feel like in South Africa, if there's anyone who's made classical music, especially tabla, so I don't know, mind-blowing, it's you. And so I really hats off to you for being so humble even. I've never heard you boast or like gossip or anything like that, and that is so inspiring, especially for my generation where we have so much to still learn. And you know, I really thanks Uncle Vishen for that amazing answer. So I just want to ask you something about like your life now. So have you ever had like a moment in your life where you said, okay, right, I want to do music seriously, this is it, and like a calling? Did you ever have that moment, or was it just, okay, I'm going to be a musician, that's it? How did your calling for music come?
The calling happened agle janam, before.
Pichhle janam.
It happened in the previous life. Pichle janam, yeah. Sorry. Agle janam is to come. Yeah, so it happened it happened before, I think. But the fact that I was born into the music family, which is my father, and watch him play tabla and watch him sing and play all the instruments and Teeluck and all of that, I think music became part of me then, and saw his passion in music, knowing at that time there was actually no industry in South Africa, and even now I feel there's no industry in South Africa. People just do it out of their love for it, and because of that love for the way he used to go everywhere and play and sing, it taught me that, and it showed me how to love the art. And in loving the art, I started to become this part of this art that is so lovable. And I just started playing and playing and playing. And then I started to meet people on the way. In my journey, I started to meet people. I met my father, I met Rajiv's father, I met Basant Ramchandra, I met Anil from Chenaz. Now, these guys are all predominantly band, all from the Bollywood sectors. Because at that time, when I was growing up into music, it was predominantly where the bands were quite rife with music. There were some guys doing the classical music, but at that time, it was for us, it's like, oh, what is No, it's like, what is he doing? We don't know. Because I wasn't in tune into classical music, because it was the band music, the folk music, because that's what was happening in my home at the moment.
Okay.
And then my father will bring in one Muhammad Rafi song that is rag based, and then we'll say, okay, this thing sounds different. So then I started to go that way.
Okay.
So, and then the classical part started, and then the semi-classical music started, and then we started playing, and then like 25 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, one star player came from Mauritius. So he was looking for a tabla player. So I wonder what his name is.
My dad.
And that's my dad. Chance came from Mauritius some 25, 30 years ago, and he was looking for a tabla player. So, and we were very hooked up with ABH at that time. And my good, now she's like a sister to me, Pandita Sharda Rani Philip, at that time, because we knew her as Sharda at that time. Well, now she's a Pandita. So she had introduced Shanjit to me, or me to Shanjit, to put it that way. And then from there, this journey started of classical music. Rag Purya Dhanashri was the first raga I heard. First time I saw a sitar with so many strings, an instrument with so many strings, and one guy is just playing it and shaking his head one way. So I was wondering what this guy is up to. So, but it opened up a world of so much of new things. It opened up a world of learning and learning and learning, and that's how big this art form is. And then from there we started playing, and then with playing with him, I learned different talas and all of that, and how to apply this thing with sitar, how to apply it with vocal. And then after that, I obviously, before that, I had done South Indian music with Karthikeyan and Uncle Sunny, and then which is Uncle Sunny is Karthikeyan's father, by the way.
Yes.
And he was also a brilliant singer. It was a pleasure for me to have played with him and to have spent some time with him, Uncle Harry, Prahlad and Singaram, all these guys, brilliant artists. So this is where I've got my South Indian background knowledge as well, and also some experience in that. So, and after that, I got involved with classical music predominantly, and then I went to study. And then I came back and I started. And when I came back from India, in 1995, 96 or something, and I decided to go back.
Okay.
When I came down, I decided to go back.
I didn't know that.
So when I came, I decided.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, when I came back, I decided to go. When I came back to South Africa, I decided to go back to India and not come back, because I felt there was no art for us, and our art wasn't being, exposed properly, especially the North Indian part of it. So having said all of that, I went back, and then I came back because I had to get married.
Oh God.
in all of that, this happened. And then even after I got married, I went back to India.
Okay.
I went back to India and I took Vireka with me. And I had to come back. Remember, the calling was here in South Africa, not in India. So that's why
I'm glad you stayed,
back.
Uncle Vishen. We have a gem in this country because you came back. Thanks to Auntie Vireka, actually. Give her some credit here.
Yeah. Because she obviously wanted to come back. She can't stay in India. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not going back. Because she can't stay in India. So I came back and I decided when I come back, it's music full force. I do music full-time on a full-time basis. And there's everything, I do everything in music. I do teaching, playing, repairing, refurbishing, and all of that. So all of that in music that I decided to do. So it was like, yeah, that time, maybe now I'm married 20 some odd years, 25, no, 21, 22 years now, I'm married. So it was that time that I decided that I want to do music full time and be an ambassador of Indian classical music in South Africa and to promote and inculcate into our youngsters the joy of learning such a lovely art form. That's the important thing.
I'm feeling so inspired now. Like, it's such a wonderful journey that you went through, and it wasn't straightforward, going, coming. That's quite interesting, actually. So now you just mentioned you are a music teacher now. So what is the importance for you, like personally now, what is the importance to give this knowledge to our youngsters or our community, South Africans?
Well, initially, it was about coming down and playing tabla and showing everybody, no, I can play because South Africa didn't hear Peshkar before. Now it is about taking that same art form and passing it to the next generation, so that they can experience what I experienced, what you are experiencing, and what other youngsters who are also ambassadors of Indian classical music in South Africa. This experience that this music gives us is phenomenal. I don't think so. Anything and watching a movie, okay, sport can give us that joy as well. But this music that if we have the talent, I don't think so. Anything else can give us joy that this music gives us. And then to learn something new, it also makes your mind work a lot. You know, application of new things makes the mind work. And when the mind is working, you start to become creative. And once you become creative, then you start to create a new sound, a new style in tabla. And over the years, that's exactly what happened to tabla. From the time it came into the great ustads from Delhi, going now to, and you'll find also a lot of other people are not, I mean, a lot of other races are also playing tabla. A lot of white people and, you know, the black people in Africa that play tabla as well. So different races have actually began to get fond of the instrument and learn the instrument. So in the same way, I want to pass this on to the younger generation so that when they play, they're playing the dha properly. They're playing the e properly. Because what's happening now, people are being taught, or they're being taught by three things. The first one is they are being self-taught. Second one is they are being YouTube taught. Right? Third one is they are being taught by a proper guru. And that's what I am, number three, and I'm like your dad as well. Where we take the instrument and we break it down totally for the newcomer and say, now has to be played this, and now don't play like that. And you know, it is like showing, this is what I teach, because when I hear a tabla player, I want him to play. And I don't want him to play. I don't want him to do that.
I can hear.
To play the proper thing, and then when they go out and they express the tabla playing, it will sound good. and everybody will enjoy. Ultimately, the sound from the tabla creates the vibration for the audience.
Okay, that's amazing. And I think as a guru, you also encourage your students to practice. And that's like without even a doubt. Obviously, we all have to practice. Now, what is your practice techniques? Like what are your go-to techniques that you practice as a person like you?
Firstly, I whack my students for practicing. At home, my boys get whacking with a stick for practice. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. So, techniques. When I'm when I'm sitting to practice, like I had a session yesterday, and I went back when I went home out of the studio. I went home to practice. At home, in my lounge, there's music instruments everywhere.
Mine too.
There is tablas lying there, dholak. It's like your house. Dholak lying there, tabla lying there, harmonium lying there, guitar lying there, keyboards there, everything. So I can take it anytime and just play and practice. But in my set practice, my practice is my imagination. My practice is my imagination where I am performing. I'm doing a performance and I have to, whatever I'm practicing, I have to do it right. Because in the performance, you can't afford for mistakes. So if I'm practicing, so if I decide to practice, so I create a song in my imagination and I start to play the lagi for it. In my mind, I'm singing that song, and then on the other side, I'm imagining your father or somebody singing, and I am playing for them. You know, the other day I was practicing Rupa Club, and I thought of that beautiful ghazal, Chupke Chupke Raat De. And the same I was doing a lagi in that same song. So this is what my practice is. It's not fixed, or I have to go. My practice is not fixed, just like the play. It's not fixed. Today you'll hear us do a song, and that's what the joy is of playing with an artist like your father as well, because he's also not a straight singer.
No.
And he also plays around with the tal, so it gives me that opportunity to play with him. So so the tabla player and the singer, they play jhula with the tal. We're going this side, we're going that side, and then so until we wait for one of them to fall down. And that only happens when the song is finished. So that's what my practice is all about. So if I decide today that I'm going to do Titta as my main, so I'll take all the compositions that I want to do in Titta and imagine that I'm performing, and this Titta has to be right. And that's what my practice is based on. Or if I want to do the K. So I'm practicing and I'm imagining that I am doing this. Even if I'm doing the Teka, I'm imagining that I'm playing only the Teka for this one particular piece or whatever, and I'm practicing. So that's what it is. The practice is about the performance.
Okay.
So yes, but the other thing is that I also do practice to strengthen each finger and all of that. So that is part of what.
And I'm sure like your practice now, after how many years of playing, it would have been different to when you were a kid. Obviously, that time you were focusing on all the basics, because you wouldn't be able to do all of these creative things if you weren't so strong with your foundation. Do you agree with me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Uncle Vishen, I didn't tell you about this, but I decided to have a little fun segment called Crescendo Questions, because I'm going to ask you a question and I want you to rapidly answer. Can you hear me? I want one word for what I'm going to say.
Okay.
So I'm saying the remakes of the classic songs.
Of
yeah.
Oh, okay. No go.
No. Okay. Original
I don't
music.
like it.
Original music?
Yeah, original.
Your word
original.
reply
Yes.
on Muhammad Rafi. Your first thing in your mind for Mohammed Rafi.
God. Voice. God's voice.
One word reply for music competitions. What's your one word for that?
It should be inspirational. Inspirational.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you something, another topic, and I want one song that comes to your mind when you hear this topic. So your wife, Auntie Vireka, what's the first song that comes to your mind?
Aapke kareeb hum rehte, apna naseeb. That is our song.
Oh, that's such a nice song. I really like that song.
Aapke kareeb rehte.
Your kids.
No, Rab ne banati jodi.
Oh, okay, that's a nice song.
Dying again. Yeah.
One song you associate.
Rab ne banati jodi. I told you.
Oh, Rab ne banati for your children. Okay, one song you associate with my father, Teeluck.
Kaise sukoon na paun.
Okay. One song you associate with your favorite tal.
No, he knows. Chupke chupke raat de.
Love that one. If you had to have an autobiography, what would you name your autobiography?
My music. Music is my life. Music is my form, everything.
Who's your music idol?
Oh, I got some. But now it's Ustad Zakir Hussain. Always been. The Breka always say you should have married him instead of her.
Who? Ustad Zakir Hussain?
I should have married Zakir Hussain.
Oh,
because everything is about Ustad Zakir Hussain.
Oh, poor Auntie.
At one stage, everything is about Ustad Zakir.
Yeah.
I said that.
Life-changing advice.
One after. Oh yeah, life-changing advice. There's a note called on tabla din, D-I-N. Do it now. That's a life-changing advice.
Good one. Okay, I want you to choose one of the two. Improvised or set pieces?
Improvised.
Okay, ghazals or pure Hindustani?
Both.
Okay, live or recording?
Live. Pura live.
And last one, Vihanu Bashir.
Ooh.
I'm just kidding. I don't want to start a world war now.
No, but both of them.
Obviously.
Because both of them are unique.
Obviously. Okay, so Uncle Vishen, this is so special to me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of this. I feel so inspired right now. And thank you for all your time and your efforts.
Lovely. All the best. You want me to play something as my
outro? Yes, please play something. Shabash. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My God. Namaste.
Okay.